Well, Lorena, is this your first time in Colombia or South America? What did you find interesting about this country?
So I've been to Caracas before, Venezuela. Obviously, the situation's changed a lot. So I think the thing for me that was a little interesting is when I went, I only had been, I was just on vacation. So here, what's really exciting now that I've been able to meet people who actually live in the various communities I'm exploring, I get to see a whole different point of view. So first time in Colombia, but the community feels very similar, right?
Oh.
We all have the same passions, the same interests, and we're all a bunch of nerds, and I love it. So, it may be that here the weather is more beautiful, but we all are in it together, and I love that.
Oh, okay, thank you. How did you react it when you received the invitation from PyCon Colombia?
I was talking about this last night with Deborah, another of the keynotes. I received an email from John. It's like, do you want to speak in Colombia? My response, sí. Nothing more. Sí. ¿Qué quieres? But in reality, though, it's always an honor to be able to explore new communities and learn alongside people who are building new opportunities for people. And having been able to see a little bit with Python Jamaica and having spent a little time with Python Day Mexico, it's really cool to see what some of the communities in South America are doing.
Okay. How do you see the community here?
So I spent a little time talking with some of the students, and what I've understood a little bit is that it's more systems engineering. And so with Python, obviously Python is an open source language, open source tool, and it has a lot of impact in the scientific space. So there's a lot of people here that arrive from different traditional spaces. They might be people that are in other scientific roles, but they want to use Python to advance their research. And to me, that is kind of where my interests are. So the notion that Python is just for web development, that is not at all what I've experienced here. I've experienced it as, Python is something we can do to not only have diversity, but inclusion. Python is something that we can do to help build tools and make practices and disciplines here that may not exist. And it's something that Python is something that is being used here to push back on kind of traditional stereotypes on what your career ought to be. So I see a lot of people kind of actively thinking through, now that we're starting to build community, what comes next?
Do you have any guilty pleasures, like music, movie, or craft, that you would like to share with us?
Oh, I love telenovelas. La Reina del Sur, Kate del Castillo. I love her. She is very, I love how passionate she is. And for me, I love it because I don't get to speak Spanish as much. So if I'm consuming telenovelas, it's like, ay, ¿por qué? Yo puedo entender más.
Claro, sí.
So telenovelas are great. I'm also a really big sci-fi buff. So Star Trek, like Live Long and Prosper.
Oh, yes, yes.
Any sci-fi, I'm a huge nerd for that kind of thing. So
Star Wars.
I don't dislike Star Wars. I'm so much more, though, a Star Trek person. That is just where my head's at. And like Discovery is amazing. They've been bringing in new voices and new people into the current season. So Sonique, she is a woman who came from The Walking Dead, who I loved. Another nerdy thing that I really enjoy. So that's where my heart's at.
Okay, movies, television, right? Television, movies.
So the television series is more where I've watched. I know there's a lot of Star Trek movies. I have not seen them all. There's way too many. There's like so many different, what we might call like fan fiction as well. When people who really like a series, they go in and they write things that they love. So that's kind of interesting. I can only keep up with so much because while I love this, I'd like to do other things too.
Have you ever these guys about that?
Oh yeah, so the term is called cosplay. Yeah, I definitely have done that. So I'm from Chicago in Illinois in the United States, and there is the Chicago Entertainment C2E2, the Chicago Comic Con, is coming up, and I'm definitely cosplaying. There's many photos of me. Actually, on the Jangle Girls blog, I'm dressed in my Star Trek outfit. So now you all know, you can make fun of me.
That's funny. We heard you are into salsa dancing. Did you go dancing in Colombia?
I like it. Yeah, I've been doing some classes in Chicago. I know the basics. I'm not amazing, but in Cartagena, I went to Club Havana. That was really cool. I really liked it. A year ago, I was actually in Havana, dancing there too. So it's kind of like maybe every February I've got to go somewhere and do that.
Every February?
Every February I gotta come somewhere in like El Caribe or like South America and do salsa.
That's good. That's good. Now let's change a bit into your field, your career.
Yep.
You come from political science and social movements. How did you change your field to programming? Could you share something about us?
So I started my career with political science and mathematics, and as a Chicago resident, during 2008 and 2009, that was the time that former President Obama put his name forward for the first presidential election. And I had been a supporter of his beforehand, and as a resident of Illinois and someone in Chicago, I was able to get into like the ground level there to work. So for me, that campaign, if you kind of look at the role of data in other spaces outside of maybe what we might consider more traditional science or like the hard sciences, that was really one of the first places that people say, hey, look what data science can do. So in that campaign, I started to use SQL, started to play. At the time I was using R. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But at the time I was using other tools to kind of think through how we can have more data-driven, get out the vote efforts, how we could customize our platform more. I was working on Latinos for Obama. But that basically just started opening up the idea that programming does not mean you have to go write software explicitly. You can use programming as a way to ask a question and find an answer. And that to me was you're like a wizard. That was amazing. I was like, I'm a wizard, I'm really cool. But the journey from there on in, kind of the applied social science, using data science was the path that I started to take. Eventually, I then, after my grad schools and continuing to work more and more with software, I built up my expertise over time. But I think the thing I'm trying to kind of advocate for is there are many ways into data science. It just requires passion, a willingness to learn, and you pick up some coding skills, and there are a lot of people who will be willing to work with you and help you learn and help you craft the question and help you get the skills you need to get there. So that to me is the only thing you need to kind of get into a more technical role should you want to.
Of course. How did you change from R to Python?
So R is a language that is more associated with statistics, and they have a lot more libraries and modules for statistical packages than maybe Python does. For me, when I started having to not only do some statistics, but I needed to start being able to pick up data, do some math, and then return it in an intelligible format, I needed to develop an API. And that wasn't really something I could do with R, so then I started moving into Python, because Python has a really rich variety of packages available from web development to scientific programming. So for me, it was kind of a natural next step to go into Python. So when I started exploring, plus in Chicago, there's a very rich Python user group.
Oh, really?
Chicago Python user group, which our acronym is CHIPPY, like a chipmunk. It's very, very cute. So as I had questions, I would go to this group. Actually, one of the people who was in the Chicago Python user group, Naomi Cedar, who's also from the Python Software Foundation, there's people like that who participate in Chicago. You can arrive with questions, and there's people who were using Python in many ways, not just in finance or not just in programming for writing software, but also were using it in their grad research or for research in their social science area of concentration. So for me, I could kind of start doing stuff. There was more options, and then when I couldn't understand what to do next, I could go tap into that community.
Cool.
Yeah.
I also want to go to Chicago too now.
Oh, yes, you should. You should. I'm super active on Twitter. Just reach out, and then we'll organize it all. The monthly meeting for our Chicago Python user group is every second Thursday, and I organize PyLadies, so we can do a big thing.
Okay. I will
But in the
schedule.
summer when the weather is better. Right
Okay.
now, now
Okay.
it's too much snow.
Okay. Okay. Any advice for people who want to change or complement their career with programming skills?
Yeah. I think one of the things to consider, so I don't know exactly here how it is, but I know that with Django Girls, that there's a really active outreach effort in new communities and not just in like Bogota or Medellin. I would say for people maybe that are based here, first of all, I believe there's an online community, a Slack community. I would always say, don't be afraid to jump online if you have access to jump online. Slack is free. You don't have to pay for it. Ask questions. Here's the question I want to ask. Here's data that I want to work with. Are there anyone in these fields that could help me? If you maybe want to work with someone who's outside of Colombia, then obviously you can use Twitter. If you go to python.org, there are many mailing lists you can go join to start kind of having a dialogue. And even then, there's more online communities. I think the thing that people may be a little intimidated about is they have to go to a conference and they have to talk to someone and they have to have an idea already of what they want. Or if you're in university, you have to already know the 5 things you want to do for the research topic that maybe you want to get your PhD in. You know, it's okay to not know. And I think experimentation is really important. So try new things. If it doesn't work out, if you fail at it, you'll learn something. That is a scientific experiment right there. Science should be about the pursuit of learning and not about, oh, hey, I invented something new, right? So for anyone who's looking to augment or add to their skill set, it's as simple as I think, there's a topic related to your field that you're passionate about. Cool, maybe there's an open source project. Maybe there's a workshop you can go talk to that has a talk about something you're interested in. Or, there's various other online opportunities that you can pursue. But start with a question that you are motivated in, because that's going to help you stay focused and continue to dig deeper.
Oh, that's good. Good advice. You're currently working in Social Sprout. Can you tell us more about what do you do in your work?
Yeah. So my company is based in Chicago. We now have an office in Seattle. So Sprout Social is essentially what we do. We are a software that pairs with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Google+. And what we offer is an ability for brands or companies to actually have a streamlined inbox. So rather than having to go to all these platforms natively, they can go ahead and go to one place, curate their content, get analytics, and actually, for example, you'll notice social media is on the rise. 2005, no one's using it. You start looking though at now, I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but we're going to be bringing the next billion people online, which is a global audience in Africa and parts of South America over the next 3 to 5 years, I believe it is. That's a huge market. And that's kind of where we want to be with social, is enabling brands from your local mom and pop shop to something like Hilton to be able to engage with their audience. I know I'm someone, when I have a bad experience, like if I'm flying, for example, I had Copa. Copa was great. But if I wanted to tell them thank you, I'm going to reach out to them on Twitter. But if I had a question about something, I would reach out to them on Twitter as well. Like, hey, I think my flight's delayed, but I don't know what's going on. That's where kind of Sprout Social kind of allows you to help monitor and see what's happening with your social presence. And then I work on the data science team. So by title, I'm a software engineer, but I work on a team where it's highly collaborative. So we're working on on the opportunities to make social media smarter. So how do we customize social media for your brand? Is there opportunities with machine learning? Additionally, as the software engineer on the team, I get to use open source to build kind of the architecture for how data science, what's the platform upon which data science can happen. So it's a really interesting problem space, a lot of data, a lot of growth, a lot of different use cases. And if you are someone who likes both software and kind of the data science, maybe you're like, I like engineering, I also like data science. It's a really interesting role to be in because you can have one foot in both.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I have a question about how is your experience managing and organizing PyLadies Chicago? the PyLadies Chicago community?
So I started the PyLadies Chicago chapter with a few, there was at the time 3 other organizers, of which I'm still on as the lead organizer. And I think what you kind of hear I have this discussion sometimes with people, why does there need to be a community explicitly for people who identify as women or non-binary? And for me, I think it's that, when you don't see people like you in your community, you can have what's called imposter syndrome. It can be very difficult at times to, as you're trying to learn, as you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your career, when people haven't had the same lived experience as you, or they don't understand the problems that you face, it can be hard to get a dialogue started. And that gets to the point of inclusion, right? We don't understand, we all have our privileged point of view, and we don't know what someone else is going through until you go through it. And PyLadies was something that I wanted to create to kind of help folks that identify as women, identify as non-binary, and wanted to continue to practice their skills. So when we first started organizing, we had been focused more on kind of introductory materials, but very quickly we realized that our community has a really big range. So we've had to learn how to cater content for mid-career, so people who are 3 to 5 years in, people who do web development, people who are picking up Python just to automate some stuff at work, but they don't really need to know everything. And then also people who use Python for science, for applied science. It's a very humbling experience to be an organizer, but also really rewarding. So it's been really cool to see people grow over time. But the community now where we're at, it's been a place where we can quickly respond to things. So there's this big data ethics push to get like a data oath kind of happening. With PyLadies, we were able to immediately, because PyLadies is such a well-known and recognized group, we were able to really quickly get an event together for February 28th. We have someone from Mozilla, a data engineer. We have from Do Good Data, a fellowship that's applied data science for civic good, social justice. We have some people coming from that. We have from the Night Lab, so people who are data-driven journalists, and we're all gonna sit and talk about it. And that's what community, I think, provides. You get to bring your voice to it, you get to ask your own questions, and through that, be it if you just wanna have friends, be it you wanna find mentors, or whatever it is, it's a really cool thing. So with PyLadies, the entire experience in a nutshell is humbling.
That's good. I feel the same.
Yeah.
I know what it feels. Considering the diversity issue in technology, you know that we as men, we organize here Django Girls Colombia.
Right.
But trying to fix that problem of diversity issue, we don't really feel or understand completely that. We don't identify ourselves with that. So what is your advice for men that are trying to fix or help fix this problem, this issue?
Yeah. One thing I do want to point to a little bit, and I think this is something that is kind of the elephant in the room, is I think when you see groups like PyLadies or Django Girls, there is this assumption that it is a space exclusively for people who identify as women. And that isn't the truth. If you read the code of conduct, essentially what people are trying to do is to create a space where women feel comfortable and are able to bring their values and how they craft that experience. But anyone who believes in that mission, be it diversity and inclusion, or maybe there's something else that you want to contribute, that's what these spaces are for. So I think people who understand that diversity is important and understand that the absence of women or non-binary people or other communities from tech is a problem, I think you're already taking the first step in the right direction. When I say being an organizer is humbling, usually organizers that I know, we're probably the first people to be like, hey, I'll do that. But as an organizer, you have to learn to step back and hear what people want, elevate their voices, and take the back role. Not be in front of ironically, we're in front of cameras right now. Yeah. But as an organizer, it's not about you, it's about the bigger picture. So I think when you talk with people who are kind of maybe struggling with that, be it's a man who's coming to help organize, or maybe because this is a term we call social location. Privilege is experienced not only by your gender, but by many things like your language, your nationality, your social class. The important thing is to start a dialogue and to listen to one another. And as people start asking questions, that actually allows us to create space to highlight what are the deeper problems. We won't learn unless we talk and we work together. So I think that the community here, what I've seen with Django Girls has been the same humility, the same willingness to learn. And I think as long as that is present in the work that you do, that is good effort. But we all are learning, and sometimes we fail. So learn to ask questions and learn to take feedback, and that is always going to be something that's with you. So as you expand your community, feel free to ask for feedback. See what people want to do. If there's new leaders that want to step up, let's change it up. And I think it's those kind of things that are going to be able to help continue to address diversity issues.
Okay. Thank you. What is your work at the PSF? What do you do, like main tasks?
Yeah. So if there is a charla that Manuel put together on what is the PSF in Spanish, which is great. But the Python Software Foundation is essentially the foundation that oversees the trademark for Python, and we focus on community. So as a director, there are elections. If you register, I have my little sticker, I'm a registered member. You can register as a basic member, but you don't have voting rights. Or you can register with other levels where you get voting rights. And what you get to do is sometimes there's community things that are up for vote, but the big thing that happens every June is there's new seats open for the board of directors. So last year we are kind of doing where people, not all 13 seats will be open each year, but we're going to start staggering, so it'll be like 3 or 4 seats each year. So the PSF, we do a lot of the community work, and it's really important, for example, to get directors from different communities. So we currently have a director from India, we currently have a director from Zimbabwe, we currently have a director from Argentina, United States, I believe the Netherlands, and that right there it's a good start, but we need more. So the Python Software Foundation, our mission essentially is not only to oversee the trademark, but we want to promote diversity and inclusion in the community and make sure the community is continuing to push and enforce the values that we collectively agree on. So that might mean that we provide funding for grants. So Django Girls is a good example of an education grant that we might offer for various workshops around the world. Additionally, for conferences and other types of opportunities, there are things. The PSF also does oversee the infrastructure of Python. So when you go pip install Django, well, pip lives on PyPy. And that is something that the PSF makes sure has support. A lot of people donate their time, so the staff, the paid people of the staff, they work on managing the volunteers who contribute things like their time to maintaining PyPy. But then the PSF kind of is the PSF board, so my role, we kind of act more as advisors. We're out there talking with people in the community, trying to bring back, oh, hey, people want to maybe see more documents translated. People want to see an organizer guide. People are still not quite clear how to get a grant. So we're trying to reach out to the community and elevate that voice and bring it back to the people who do day-to-day work so that they know what to work on, and we continue to do that. So if this is something of interest to you, go to python.org/PSF. It's pretty awesome. The next election to be a director, and by the way, to be a director, you basically are, if you know Python and you participate in the community, you can run. It's pretty great. So we have one person from Latin America, but I'm sure we should have more.
Yes.
So I encourage you all, go try it out. If you have any questions, Lorena at python.org. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Oh, thank you. For the last, but not least, how do you see Python in the next 10 years? Do you feel will be a dominant player in your field?
Yeah. There is, so Stack Overflow, something I use all the time. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. How do I do this? It's a myth that you learn everything. I will always ask questions. That's how I learn. But Stack Overflow, they did some research, and Python is one of the quickly growing languages. And a big reason for this is because of its role in scientific programming. So I think that trend is going to continue. I mean, we have something like 2.4 billion gigabytes of data being generated daily. At least that was a stat as recent as 2012. So when we have all this new data, like what are we doing with it, right? And what kind of languages work well with that? Well, Python's easy to learn. It's a batteries included language, to steal the example that Jake Vanderplas gave in his PyCon keynote last year. Meaning that it has good modules to work with the web to get data, to scrape data, to shape data, to do analysis on data. That's not going away. We have more data. We have more data-driven applications being produced. We need more people who can think critically about this, and Python is an optimal language for this. And as the technical requirements for other fields grows, Python is gonna, I think, continue to be a big player in this. Additionally, Python in education, so I'm really interested in the role that Python has in computer science for young people. So for example, in Chicago, the Chicago Public School District now has a requirement for high school students to do computer science. So we're seeing younger and younger people picking up programming skills, and Python, because it is intuitive, it is friendly, it also has an increased role in the education space. So science, education, and of course web development. I mean, it's kind of it's an ideal language to play, explore, create your MVP, your minimum viable product, and it works well with, and it plays well with other languages. Yeah. So that is, there's a lot of opportunity, but I think the biggest thing is going to be the continued development in how Python can work with data.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, that's the end of the
awesome
conversation. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you.